I'm Sarah Schofield. I'm what's called Team Vicar of All Saints in central Wolverhampton. We're a Church of England church, it's important to say. For people from the LGBT community looking for a church, unless they live in London or Manchester, the choices are, to my knowledge, really quite limited. For me, when somebody comes to the church, is less who they are, what what their ethnic identity is, their genetic identity, anything like that. The issue is how they live their life, and primarily the first issue is for me as to how I live my life, as to whether I'm welcoming and encouraging of anyone. And then the next thing is, do people stand up to the command to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul and with all your strength, and to use their brains to apply that to the biblical texts. And the texts as a woman priest, I'm in a far more vulnerable position in terms of the amount of scripture that talks about women in leadership being a bad thing than people who are in lesbian and gay relationships. So it would be very hypocritical of me, if nothing else, to say, well, those scriptures that I feel as a woman priest no longer apply, to then take a look at this far smaller number of scriptures and say, but actually I'm thinking of those. Just because of my upbringing, the churches I grew up in, the people I knew, to be honest, perhaps the reverse from a lot of people from the LGBT community. I was probably about 20 until I realised that this was a bad thing in the church, because I'd known gay congregation members, gay clergy. And then I went to an evangelical youth camp, probably a little bit younger than 20, but not far off, and discovered that this was supposed to be a sin. And so coming back to it in that retrospective sense, as a bright woman, I sort of looked at the text and thought, well, actually, it's a little bit like being told that being female is a sin or something like that. I have firm beliefs around commitment, and that's why I really hope one day the church moves towards equal marriage, but I know it's not going to go there quickly. And there's a question to people as to whether they leave or whether they stay, and I respect people who leave completely. But for me, if all the women who believed in women in leadership had left 100 years ago, when the Church of England really started to wrestle with this, I wouldn't be here today. But I totally understand why people leave, because it can be a very painful place. And some people leave and come back, and I'd say to anyone who's left and come back, the church needs LGBT people in it. I've just always welcomed people on the basis they live their life. That would be where I was at personally.